it didn't change perhaps the majority of us. In fact, it only hardened them in their convictions. I was interviewed by Johnny Kay, who's an editor at the National Post, for his book on conspiracies. And he visited, and we sat across the table from one another. I served him coffee and so on, and we chatted. And he asked me, he said, David, why is it that after 9/11, you changed your political stripes, so to speak, and moved from the left to the right, when most of your colleagues and friends did not? And I replied, it's very simple, Johnny, I'm smarter than they are. That didn't get into his chapter on the interview in which he subtly maligned me, because I think Johnny has moved pretty much left of center and belongs in the Globe and Mail or the Toronto Star rather than the National Post. Anyway, this started the whole process of trying to rethink my life. And when I wrote The Big Lie, which was a study really of anti-Semitism and the relation between Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, I realized that I was going in a direction that disturbed me, because I didn't want to go there. I was happy where I was, slightly left of center. But the evidence that I was coming up with, bit by bit by bit, and real evidence, facsimiles from the United Nations documents, articles from the Beirut Daily Star of 1948, which I was able to get, and so on. All the evidence I was accumulating over that 5-year period pointed me in a different direction from where I had been heading if I had not been in stasis before that. The problem was that I was sacrificing Ketman, which, is the definition of Ketman is wanting to be in a good relationship with your peers. You lose your friends if you go right of center. I mean, you gain others, but you gain fewer friends than those you have lost. I've lost most of my poet friends who have condemned me for violating some kind of sacred cause. Though, in fact, one of my closest friends, the French-Canadian poet, I won't give you his name, but probably in my estimation, the best Francophone poet in this country, I heard from very close friends, had condemned me for writing a book that was not properly supported by the evidence, that my footnoting, my research, that's what he said, my research was shoddy. The book is about 350 pages, and about 100 pages and more are footnotes. And everyone gives you an address that you can go to check things up for yourself. And that's what I was trying to do. It's not just present a thesis, but present the possibility of others looking up the conclusions that I had tentatively arrived at. So there was Israel, there was Islam, there was American politics that started to fascinate me, Canadian politics as well. And in the course of that trajectory, global warming. Or global warming, I call the book Global Warming. Because this struck me, global warming struck me as another sort of advance that the leftist mindset was attempting to impose upon us, was attempting to, in a way, to further the ambitions of these socialist revolution that had failed in the Soviet Union, the God that had failed in East Germany, that had failed everywhere in the world that it had been tried, including the shining example of Cuba. It was no longer possible to present a socialist argument politically in a credible way. Consequently, the left had to invade the mental space of the Western world through more surreptitious means. And there are various different kinds of means that they could have employed and have indeed employed, and one of these has to do with global warming, because in order to control global warming, you have to be able to create a kind of collective socialist republic, quote unquote, which controls, as I said earlier, private life and free market economics, and in fact projects a new kind of, well, it's an old kind of society that is predicated on how shall I put it, synotic or absolutist lines. Life has to be controlled. It's a kind of statist takeover that we are seeing. And of course, it goes hand in hand with crony capitalism. Solyndra, all these various green firms, these windmills that you've seen about, this is all big money. And the big money is in fact affiliated with this political collective, of which, for example, people like President Obama are a central and a necessary part, but not only him. There are many such people and many such organizations around the world. The whole idea is to advance the collectivist cause. And global warming is one of the ways which will allow the state to dictate our lives. Every little point in our lives. Charles Krauthammer has written about this. In England, for example, the idea of carbon, a kind of, how should I put it, a carbon card would be required, just like an ID card, of its citizens, which would allow you to use only so much energy over the years, which would dictate how often you were allowed to fly, which would dictate how you would manage your thermometer in your own house, the temperatures that you could actually allow yourself to set, and so on. And NG Electric firm in Britain has published a bulletin, and also I think it's on it's part of their TV ads, that children should be given a carbon notebook in which they could inform upon their parents, and they would submit to this authority, this electrical giant, how their parents and also their uncles and aunts, if you read the thing, have misused the energy of this planet. I mean, ultimately, they will become like, in the Kite Runner, they will become like Rafiqs. Or as in, the fascist and communist dictatorships, where children inform on their parents. This is really what is happening. And of course, most of us refuse to see that, because it seems unbelievable. It seems almost like that claim that perhaps extraterrestrials are observing us and may invade us, because we are, in fact, the climate might heat up by 0.5 degree over the next 100 years. And this would mean, expulsion from the solar system or something like that. What is happening is incredible. It's unbelievable, but it is happening. It is definitely happening, at least so far as I can see. What I have done in this book is not to present an idea that is native to my own thinking. What I've done is summarize the literature on both sides, and asked my reader, in a way, solicited my reader, if I have any readers, to look for themselves, to check up on the information for themselves. Every claim that I make or put forward in this book comes with a parenthesis that has an address. And the address is not just some like fly-by-night, blue smudged memo sheet. These are the real organizations that, so far as we can tell, are trustworthy. They've been right about so many things in the past, so they may be right about certain things in the present and the future. You have to consult these, but how many people have the time to do that? I mean, to do the research, to find all these places. I've given a list of the most important books that I know about. It's on the last page of Global Warming. But who has the time in this very busy world of ours? Who has the time to read 10, 15, or 20, 350-page books on climate? Well, I made the time, and I presented the titles to my reader, and when I've researched various sites and scientific magazines that are so credible, I've given the addresses so that you can look them up for yourself. And the conclusion at the end may be that you disagree with me. And there's nothing more I can do. That's fine, disagree with me. But at least I'm asking my reader to look at the evidence, and so far as I can see, and it's not anything I wanted to happen, just as when I wrote that book, The Big Lie, I didn't want to come to the conclusions I came to because I knew I would lose all my friends. I was very content where I was at that time. So I had to make that choice. Do I follow my conscience, or do I follow my desires? my desire to have friends or my conscience to tell the truth so far as I can understand it. I had to follow my conscience. I had no choice in the matter, and I had to pay the price. And it's not that costly when you think about it, because the friends I've made since then, far fewer than the ones I have lost, as I said, are far more valuable as far as I'm concerned. The people I know now are the people I should have known before 9/11 if I had been thinking correctly. And I wasn't. So that's really what the book is about. And the curious thing is, as I said earlier, that there's a kind of blindness that has overcome the vast majority of people. They don't have the time to consult the books, okay. They don't have the time to consult the various research sites, organizations, and institutions, okay. But they do have the time to listen to the CBC. And to believe that what that branch plant of Al Jazeera has to tell them is true. And it is not. Well, we know. Avi Lewis has gone to, Naomi Klein's husband has gone to Al Jazeera. Tony Berman, one of the leaders, one of the head honchos at the CBC, has become the director of English programming at Al Jazeera in Qatar. And we know that it's just a farm team for the Islamic Revolution, which, as we also know, is in a very nuptial intimacy with the far left. And the far left is promoting precisely this global warming scam, which, if we accept the idea of credible verisimilitude, getting as close to the truth as we can get, though it continues to recede, is, I think, undeniable. So that the real deniers are those who call us the deniers. I'm going to finish in 1 second, Fred. I know. I just want to do two more things very quickly. This won't take long. I've been condemned for this book by both adversaries and friends. This is very curious. I just want to read you a few short exclamations, imprecations, execrations, or whatever you want to call them, from an adversary, no name, excuse my language. I know the facts, but they don't sit well with your one-eyed libertarianism, but really an intelligent man like you, which would be me or Fred, shouldn't fall for this crap. David Solway is not a fucking scientist. And then we go on, he is referring to me, or asking Fred, how could you give a platform to someone as ignorant, biased, and quite frankly swivel-eyed on the subject as Solway?